Live. Welcome everybody. Welcome to this talk on how to feel after a lifetime of not feeling. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Pierre-Etienne. I'm the founder of the Healing Studio Online and mind body practitioner specialized in stress management and trauma recovery. And today I will be in conversation, just like every Tuesday at this time, with Mrs. Amari Dior, who's also a chronic pain coach. And so today we are going to talk about how to feel after a lifetime of not feeling. So take a moment, sit yourself comfortably, grab a glass of water. We're going to discuss what does that mean. A lifetime of not feeling. How do we define it? What to do, how to do it. We're going to come from personal experiences here. Just sit yourself there for a few moments. Amari is about to join me. And if you're all set and you're ready, by all means, just take a breath. And I'd like to remind you that every Tuesday at this time, which is 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern Time if you're in the US, 5 p.m. if you're in France, if you're in Egypt or somewhere around there, we take some time with my colleague Amari to talk about pain management. We're talking about physical pain, emotional pain, and so on and so forth, right? And so in the past, what have we talked about? We've talked about nerve pain. Last week, the week before, we talked about COVID-19 pain and how to deal with it, and so on and so forth. And so for those who have questions, who are watching us live or watching this replay, and if you have any questions about pain that you'd like for us to address live, let us know. So I see that Amari is here. She's joining us. All right.
Hi.
Hello,
Good morning
hello.
from
Good
over
morning.
here.
Good morning to you. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you doing?
Doing well. Doing well. Wrapping up the day on that side of the pond, but overall doing
Nice.
very well.
Nice.
So I was letting people know that today we're going to talk about how to feel after a lifetime of not feeling. You want to say a couple of words about who you are, and then I'll do the same. And then we get into the conversation, just as a reminder.
Yeah, sure. So, hello everyone. My name is Mari. I am owner of Body and More Wellness. I am a health coach that helps people with chronic pain adopt healthy lifestyle choices and pain management skills holistically. And yeah, I'm really happy to be on here and to do these lives every Tuesday with you, Pierre.
The pleasure and the honor is mine. And so, yes, for those who don't know me, my name is Pierre-Etienne Vanier. I'm a mind-body practitioner specialized in stress management and trauma recovery. And basically what I do is teach people how to regulate their nervous system. How can we self-regulate using safe, self-managed, non-pharmacological practices, meaning mind-body practices. And so we had a question from a viewer saying how to feel after a lifetime of not feeling, and I think we both were like, this is an interesting question.
Right.
So maybe why don't we start by, as usual, kind of like, define the terms. What are we talking about when we say how to feel? What are we talking about? A lifetime of not feeling. Do you want to give it a shot, or shall I start?
I can give it a shot just
Go for
briefly
it.
before we get heavily into it. So My understanding of this question, just from a personal frame, is that when we go through sadness, small t or big T trauma, sometimes it feels unsafe to be in our body, like to actually acknowledge what's going on. And that causes us to shut down and just kind of go through life in the motions, but not really experience the highs and lows of life and acknowledging the highs and lows of life. So when we stop feeling, it can be really scary to dip your toe back in and start feeling again, because the last time I felt, you know, in that sense, the last time I felt, it was scary. It was hurtful. I didn't know how to deal with it. I didn't want to deal with it. So yeah.
Yeah, and there's so much already to what you shared. So if I may comment on a couple of things here. So when we talk about like you said, how to feel, and you mentioned the ups and downs, and I think here it's important for people to understand that the question, or at least, you know, the way I understand it, is not, well, how can I always feel happy again, right? And like, that's not what we're talking about. We are talking obviously about reclaiming that sense of safety, that sense of peace. We'll go there in a few moments. But it is about reclaiming that flexibility, that oscillation in my nervous system, the ability to upregulate, downregulate. So we're not looking for a stress-free life. We're looking for a life where every now and then, when appropriate, I'm able to come out of that survival response. And so the ability to oscillate, the ability to experience, to feel, is, as far as I'm concerned, really an ability to connect to my own inner experience. And by definition, to connect to others, because if I'm not connecting to my own inner experience, I cannot, I think, resonate with anything that's going on around me. I mean, we'll shortly, you know, after this live, we'll be on a class discussing with cancer patients, you know, the changes in the sense of relationship with others. And obviously our relationship with others is primarily defined, you know, by our relationship with ourselves. So that's the important point I wanted to make here. Remember that we are trying to reclaim that flexibility, that oscillation, that ability to go up and down, in and out of these of different states, right? Not to get stuck anywhere. And the second point is, like you mentioned, you know, big T trauma, small T trauma. And here I'm reflecting on my own personal experience, and people who've watched these lives, you know, we try as much as possible, you and I, to speak from our own personal experience. And so let's remember that that shutdown that you were referring to, right? That collapse of the nervous system, that when the walls come up and it's like, you know, I don't want to feel anything because, like you said, it's scary. Right. What I wanted to mention before we move forward is that in that state of numbness, of apathy, of disconnection, let's remember that this is not a conscious decision. This is not a conscious decision for us to go in that state of shutdown, in that state of freeze, right? Okay. Whatever you want to describe it. And I want to mention that early on because I've heard from so many people, and I've personally, you know, beat myself up when I was like, how come I wasn't able to do, or like, and fill the blank? How come I wasn't able, fill the blank, right? To speak up, to go to that event, to get up, to pick up my kids, to do this. And I think some of us, and most certainly me, like a few years ago, in my mind, it was like, you know, like I need to be better, right? I need to be stronger. I need to be something right now that is different from what I'm experiencing, because it's not enough. And in that moment, there was so much criticism, self-criticism, self-judgment. And I want to start as we discuss this further. This is a reminder to you, to myself, to all the viewers, for that self-compassion. As we engage in that conversation of how can I, feel again? And I think one important component, which is almost, as far as I see it, both as somebody who's dealt with chronic pain and was dealing with chronic pain, and with somebody who's a practitioner, that self-compassion is such an important container.
Exactly.
Am I making sense here?
1,000%. And this topic, it's somehow reaches to all the other lives that we've shared together, where it's giving yourself grace, especially in a time where we're going through trauma, or we're dealing with this, or we're in this fight, flight, or freeze state, and trying to heal. So giving yourself grace, that's another one. And there was something else that you touched on, just in the fact that we don't do the shoulds, That's not giving yourself grace. It's should. I should be able to do this. I should be able to show up for myself. I should be doing this right now, and why am I not? That beating yourself up, it doesn't help the healing process. It actually makes us feel even more unsafe, and causes more emotional buildup and more frustration and more inner rage. And it keeps us away from that rest and digest. It keeps us away from the exact thing that we need in that time.
And if we, and just like what I'm hearing, the word that comes up, that are coming up for me, is like you said, with that frustration, with that should, with that subtext that's really, I'm not enough, and I'm not doing enough. I'm not performing, well enough. That takes us even deeper in that stress response. Like you said, I think the word that comes up in my mind is inflammation. We're having, I know for me, the more I get frustrated on my back pain, the worse it gets. And so let's understand here that in that fight or flight, when I'm starting to fight that situation, that pain, right? What I'm doing is really further upregulating my nervous system, and going even deeper into that stress response. And as we know, that stress response is not, like you said, it's far from, it's a survival state. It's not a healing state, right?
Exactly.
So here we're talking about compassion, self-compassion. We're talking about, I've heard you talk many times about radical acceptance, which is a powerful thing, and yet such a challenging thing to do for many of us. And I know today I wanted to keep that live relatively short, because I know there's like thousand ways to heal and to get better and to reclaim and to feel again. But I personally wouldn't want to focus on the technique, and we've had that conversation somehow before, because there are like millions of techniques out there. And so try different things and see what feels right. And when I say what feels right, I think the goal is, and you've mentioned it at the beginning, as far as I see it, that's the crux of healing, especially when we've been shut down for so many years. And here for me, I don't want to go too clinical, and so I'll come back to myself, which is for years and years and years, I thought I was so cool and nonchalant, and and then when I studied the nervous system, I was like, ooh, I've been in freeze. I've been in that state of chronic freeze for a long time before, because of things I've experienced. And so here we are talking about, like you said earlier, that process of reclaiming safety.
Right.
That process of reclaiming safety, that process of coming home, that process of saying, when is it okay for me to feel again?
Mm-hmm.
Right? When is it okay for me to feel again? And because I think when I started to feel again, and we're talking about pain, but we're talking about emotional pain, physical pain, whatever you're experiencing that shut you down.
Yeah.
The question is not to open the floodgate and find something and you can just feel it all and somehow release it and exercise it and I'm saying that jokingly, but I used to work like this. I used to work in very cathartic, like heavy processes with my clients, and now the more experience I get, the more I'm like, let's just take it easy, because you cannot jerk your nervous system back into safety. Right. So here that important piece, which is like, let's go slow. I think for me a key point as we reclaim these islands of safety is like, how quickly are you asking your nervous system to feel again? Because I'm assuming there's an urge. I've seen clients who told me, please help me because I can't feel a thing. I don't feel, and the thing is, obviously, when you shut yourself down from pain and so-called unpleasant and negative emotions, you're also shutting down everything else, right? So I remember that mother once that came to me and she was like, I can't feel anything, not even for my kids. She was so shut down. She felt so isolated. And for her, there was an urge. She was like, I have to feel again. And so the challenge here was, how can you pace yourself, right? And to understand that most of the time, slower is better, right? Less is more. And that's a challenging concept, I think, here.
It's definitely a challenging concept. And one thing that, just something that popped up in my head when you said there is definitely an urge, where we come to a point that we realize that we need to feel again. And even if that's in small bouts, that it needs to happen. And it makes me remember when I was going through time, and a lot of times people don't realize that grief is not just a loss of a person, but it's also a change and a transition. It's a loss of opportunity. It could even be seeing a loved one sick. And a couple years ago, and this was also during the time that, like shortly after my big accident that caused the chronic neck pain and back pain, and pelvic pain. And what happened was my grandmother had dementia. And this is a very frustrating type of diagnosis to go through, probably for oneself, of course, and also the family members that are around that is seeing the change and dealing with the change and making up for the change. And for me, most of the time, I was seeing my grandmother get sick. I was also dealing with denial of my own health issues. And I realized, reflecting back on things, that I was just kind of going through the motions, and I was neglecting myself. I was neglecting the fact that a loved one, my grandmother, had become sick. And I was kind of just stating what was happening rather than feeling what was happening. I was like, yeah, she has dementia, but I wasn't really connecting with it, and I wasn't allowing myself to connect with it because, one, I realized that this was a way that I could cope with things because I didn't know how long this journey would be. didn't know if it would get better. I didn't know how bad it would get. And so I just kind of went into a state where I was not feeling anymore. I was neglecting my body, and I was having all this pain, and I was really the only thing I was feeling. But emotionally, I wasn't dealing with things. And it came to a point when she got very sick and passed away that I allowed myself to cry. And I realized that the entire time that I was going through the pain of my accident, and the entire time I was going through the pain of her change, I didn't allow myself to cry. And I finally did. And I only was able to cry after allowing myself to journal. And I wasn't even trying to journal and figure out what am I feeling. It was just kind of something that came to me, that I began doing, that I began praying, and then I allowed that release. And I didn't realize that I hadn't been doing that. I've been neglecting myself. I've been neglecting what was going on within my family. I've been neglecting the fact that my family that was also going through this change, and helping in the healthcare of my grandmother, and also helping in the fact that I could no longer work at the time because I had this chronic pain. I wasn't acknowledging all this change. I wasn't acknowledging the grief of the change. I was just going through the motions. And finally, I got that urge where I couldn't just go through the motions anymore. It was this enormous buildup where I tried one small thing, and all of a sudden a flood came through. And I'm not saying that that is good for everybody, in a good way for everybody, because that flood can be enormous and it can be hard to deal with. And it was hard for me to deal with for several months. And it took me being interested in my health and my well-being, and me realizing once again that urge, there has to be something that I can do about this. This is a flood of emotions. I just realized that I've been neglecting my body, my family, the state of my entire life. And I had to go through that change. I had to go through education, and I had to become a coach, and I had to study naturopathy, and I had to keep trying to journal. And it took a while, but there was that urge. That is a really great word that you used, because I do believe that is exactly what our body tells us, is like, wait a minute, enough is enough.
There's two important concepts for me that I wish to highlight from what you just shared right now. And that is, number one, just reminder to myself, you and everybody here, that this process cannot be forced, right? That when you talk about feeling these feelings, it's like, well, how much of it, right, can I integrate, can I experience? And so, as far as I see it, when we talk about reclaiming safety, I have found that it's so much, it was, what's the word? Easier to integrate, more digestible, less jolting for me to actually resource my nervous system, widen my bandwidth to be able to feel, rather than try to connect, right, to that pain. Because when I don't connect to that pain, is because maybe I'm not able to, right? Maybe my nervous system doesn't have the bandwidth for that. So, and I'm saying that because I see so many clients, and I've been there, right, who are like, there's that thing that's stuck, and I need to connect to it, and I need to feel it, and and I'm like, yeah, but maybe you've been trying to feel that for years. And instead of trying to feel it, what about we just create the container for you, for your nervous system to be able to hold it? And that seems like such a simple idea. And yet I see so many people going to sessions and do work to kind of like feel. And their nervous system is not resourced. It's not stabilized. It's not stabilized enough to hold you know, the sensations that will come up. So that's my message and my reminder to people. It's like, pace yourself. And number two, which also I think you mentioned, which is a really important thing, is like when we talk about reclaiming safety. So yes, it is about feeling, you know, safe again. What does that feel like? And also giving ourselves permission to feel all the so-called negative or unpleasant emotions, because I think that's what a lot of us like struggle with. It's like, well, I want to feel joy. I want to feel gratitude. Yes.
Yeah.
And we also need to learn how to hold sadness, how to hold grief, how to hold anxiety, right? How to hold all the things that most likely contributed to put us in that shutdown and that freeze response in the first place. So here for me, just like I've mentioned before, right, one of my mentors from the Trauma Resource Institute used to say, well, if, you know, just slice that apple. Like, don't try to shove that apple down your throat. Let's not do that emotionally. That emotional apple, let's just slice it and connect to some of that emotion, to some of that sadness, right? To those of you watching us dealing with grief, to those of you watching us dealing with anxiety, with pain, whatever you're dealing with, right? The question is, how can I build the skills and the resources and stabilize my nervous system in a way that I feel safe enough? I didn't say safe. I didn't say fully safe. I said safe enough for me to just get in conversation with, fill the blank, right? Sadness, anxiety, and so on and so forth. Because once you connect to that, like you said, in your case, that was a release. In your case, that was your nervous system say, hey, thank you. Here it is. Now we can work on it. I've spent years in freeze. It's as it may be unproductive, but eventually it becomes a pretty numb, you know, it's more comfortable than high fight or flight. It's more comfortable for me to feel numb than to feel in pain. So I know that for me, it took some extra effort to be like, oh no, okay, I need to come out of that illusion of comfort or lack of all sensations, and to train myself to be able to start to feel. Right? And know that it's okay that eventually I can, my goal is not to come out of that freeze forever, is not to not feel anything, is to be able to, again, oscillate. Oscillate, right? And so when I learn to come out of that state of shutdown into a state where maybe I've got to feel some of that pain, physical, emotional, and so on and so forth, and then eventually know that it's okay for me to go back to shut down again, or it's okay or maybe I'll be able to have an experience like you had, right? Which can be cathartic, which can be transformational. But here I want to say to all the people who are like, I'm still waiting for that big experience, know that it's probably a multitude of small experiences that will rebuild that sustainable sense of safety, right? Coming home.
Yeah, everyone's healing journey is different. And that release for me, it wasn't me being healed. That was just a release that's like, now you can begin working, you know. And it's important for people to understand that, like, it's a great to be able to cry, because that is a sign that we are coming again to feel. And then now we are able to recognize the signal and understand the signal and do work with this signal that will allow us to begin to understand our body, understand the way we think, our emotions, and understand the trauma that we've gone through, and then deal with it.
And us learning how to make space for all these unprocessed sensations and emotions. And I'm looking at the chat here, all day Nene mentioning great insight to journal your way to your feelings, get out of your head. Amen. All day Nene, absolutely right. We both, Marie and I think, will advise, right, will advise to get in touch with the body here. And Darlene mentioning, I'm dealing with all of the above, as you know. Yes, Darlene, and you were on my mind when I was sharing some of these comments. All day Nene mentioning, you can change, you can feel what you don't acknowledge.
Yes.
Right? So the connection, the embodied awareness, right, is the starting point. Let's get in touch with it. And before you get in touch with it, before I get in touch with it, let's get ready. Let's get ready for that, right? Let's learn the skills. Let's learn the tools. There are millions out there. Find something that works for you. And for me, my final words would be that it's just, I'm bringing back the image of a mentor of mine many years ago when I started this work, who said, you know, your work right now, you're like an emotional firefighter. You just, people will come, we're going to get the gear, we're going to put the gear on, and we're going to walk through that fire, right? And with the permission to walk back at any point of time, but oftentimes, wow, when you cross that fire, you're like, oh wow, actually my body's processing it right now. Actually, and so that acknowledgement can be so powerful. So so thank you, Darlene. Thank you, Olde Nene. Anything you wish to mention, Amari, as we wrap this one up?
This was a great conversation, and I really, really enjoyed it. Let's definitely let the viewers know. Please submit any questions that you have about pain management, about the healing process. We are so eager to speak with you and answer your questions and talk from our own personal experience and professional experience. My name is Amari. I'm a chronic pain coach. Once again, helping those with chronic pain adopt healthy lifestyle choices and pain management skills. Thank you so much, Pierre. If you want to leave off and
just see you, everybody. Just take a breath. If you're still watching, remember to take a breath right now. Thank you, Darlene, for your kind words. Thank you, everybody, for listening. We hope to see you again next week, same time. If you have questions, please feel free to send them to us, and we'll happily discuss them live. Thank you, Amari. Thank you, everybody. Be well.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Take care.